Yeah, it was.
Are you recovering from sick, getting sick, or not sick at all?
What's that?
You sounded a little sick in your voice.
If we're sick, do we get
Well.
home early?
Is that tomorrow?
That's like that.
Yeah,
The kids
that's
work
what
too
it
much.
is. That's what it is.
It's just worse.
You got it.
That was a good discussion. Yeah. Which is nice.
Reference if you want to sit here or if you want to stand up. The cord will reach you.
Oh, you know what? I totally forgot about it. I was gonna. Let me be right back. One second.
That's the JRCA. It's talking about Scott Holmes.
Okay. Or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I can call it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started with our city council meeting this evening. We appreciate all of you in attendance. We'll get started with our meeting this evening with an opening that'll be provided by Cole Stevens, the invitation of Councilmember Adams, after which I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, as we come here as citizens of Kaysville City for the opportunity to participate in our civic duties, we're grateful for this opportunity that allows us as citizens and residents of Kaysville to come together in the united effort of the governing body of Kaysville City. We're grateful for this land that we live in. We're grateful for the liberties that we enjoy and for the freedoms that this country provides to have the form of government that we do by an elected body. We pray a blessing to be upon this meeting and upon City Council, that the decisions that are made that will be in the best interests of Kaysville City. And we pray for these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. To get started on our meeting, first we'd make you aware we do have agendas available on the wall over here to your left. You're more than welcome to grab one and check off as we move through tonight's agenda items. We'll begin with introductions. My name is Steve Hyatt. I serve as the mayor of Kaysville City.
Jake Garn, City Council.
Dave Adams.
Susan Lee, City Council.
Chris Snell, City Council.
Larry Page, City Council.
Shane Scott, City Manager.
Maria Devereaux, City Recorder.
Andy Thompson, engineer.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is Business Spotlight. A few years back, we started a tradition where in our city council meetings we invite members of our business community to come and highlight or spotlight their businesses. We are fortunate to have with us this evening Orange Theory. And I can see the representative who I didn't get a chance to meet beforehand from Orange Theory here today, so we welcome you up to the microphone and ask you to introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like to spotlight your business.
Perfect. So my name is Yun Mayer. I am the studio manager down there at Orange Theory. We're just located right on Flint Street, so we're right next to the new Smith's Marketplace. Since being in Kaysville, the owners that opened the first Orange Theory, they actually opened it, well, the owners that own the two studios, there's one in Bountiful, and then I thought they made a great choice by bringing one up here to Kaysville. I've lived in the area now for 12 years, and it is a very welcoming community and a very fitness-oriented community. And so we've been received very well. The thing that separates Orange Theory and the thing that really helps us fit into this community is the fact of we're very personalized. We want everyone to succeed. So it's circuit-based training, but it also has personal trainers that are there at your beck and call. So from consults to making sure that you're reaching your goals, whatever those are. So we're super excited to be in the area. Like I said, we've been received really well up to this point, growing substantially each and every month, so couldn't be more grateful for that. We'd love to have every single person in this room come and try out a class. I think you'd enjoy it and hate it at the same time, which is a good thing. It means it's working. Like I said, just give us a call, stop in anytime that you want. We're just right there next to that new Smith's Marketplace. So.
We'll call you the Punisher.
Yeah, we have a few of those for sure.
And if folks want to find out more about your business, or you have a website?
Yeah, so it's KaysvilleOrangeTheoryFitness.com.
KaysvilleOrangeTheoryFitness.com.
Yep.
Excellent.
Quick question. What was your name again?
My name is Yun. First name Yun, last name Meyer. So
Yun Meyer.
Yep, a little bit different.
Great, Yun. What differentiates Orange Theory Fitness from, say, any other gym?
So we like to classify ourselves as a studio first and foremost, because it's not a $9 walk in, hopefully get something out and leave. You're going to step in, you're going to be in a classroom environment, you get to suffer together and succeed together. And so it's a fast-paced exercise program that's about an hour long, heart rate based, which is really nice. So you get to actually watch in real time your heart rate up on the screens inside the studio. We also have a certified personal trainer in the class with you, making sure that you're not over or under training. So you're getting a lot of form corrections, you're getting a lot of, hey, let's go, you can go a little bit harder, hey, scale back if you need to. And like I said, with the consults and everything, it's hard to beat. I mean, we have a sign-up sheet for all of our members to be able to sign up anytime that they want to sit down with a trainer and go over diet or exercise tips or anything like that. We're there to help. We want to help people actually see the results instead of just, hey, cool, you've signed up. Now we'll see you in a year when your contract runs up, and in between there, just high end. So that's definitely the biggest difference.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions from the council? All right, we'll also, I think we share your information both on our website, and we'll highlight you on our Facebook page, and also highlight you in in our future next newsletter, as well as part of being in the business spotlight. So
Awesome.
Thank you for
Appreciate it.
coming in.
Thank
sharing
you.
about your
Thanks,
business.
Ken.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, next item we have on our agenda is call to the public. This is the time in our city council meeting when we open the microphone to any of you in attendance that would like to address the city council. Actually, before I do that, I just had a thought, Young. We had a meeting a little bit earlier, Councilmember Lee and myself and Cole and City Manager Shane Scott with the chairman of our Yard and Garden Committee, who is a big thinker and has a lot of great ideas, and he talked to us about the possibility of creating Ron Zollinger, creating a healthy Kaysville committee to highlight and encourage health in the community. And we left that with Ron leading the effort to get that created, and maybe the timing is perfect if I'm sure he was actively looking for participants to help. We're not sure exactly what that will be, but we know if he's at the helm, it will be great. So maybe just make that introduction already. So our call to the public is the time in our city council meeting when we open the microphone to anyone in attendance that would like to address the city council. We don't have any public hearings scheduled as part of tonight's agenda, so if you'd like to address the city council regarding one of tonight's agenda items, this would be your opportunity to do so. We do ask that you keep your comments limited to 3 minutes out of respect to time. Our city recorder keeps track of time And when you hear the beeping, that's an indication that your 3 minutes has expired. We would ask you to wrap up your comments. So with that, call to the public.
My name is Brig Lewis, and I've come to address this little part of your letter. And it says in there the smart meter was 900 megahertz. The cell phones were 1,000 times greater. Why we remote control is 30 times greater, and some other things on there. And I want to question that. It says that averages, I've read the report that came from, and those are all done by utility companies. They have a reason to make it look that way. I want to address transient versus steady state. And the first example that I will use is you have an industrial business. He has 3 20-amp motors that he uses in there for various purposes. One of those motors takes 80 amps to start it. Another one takes 60 amps to start it. Another one takes only 40 amps to start the motor. Well, if you turn them all on at the same time, that's 180 amps that he has to have access to. And that's where the demand comes from when you sell power. If you turn one on, motor 1, and then 1 second later you turn the next one on, then 1 second later you turn the next one on, well, your demand now is 80 amps, not 180. So there's transient conditions that go along with it. The California Public Utilities Commission has ordered all utilities as of 2011 to allow opt-out on smart meters. In my former life, I designed high-power radars for the U.S. Navy. One in particular that we had, we put out a 1/4 microsecond pulse, that's narrow, 1 megawatt or 1 million watts of power in that little thing. Okay? If we were to pulse that once every 10 seconds, the average power is actually way less than your cell phones or anything else. But I don't think you would want to sit there while that 1 million watts pulses bang on you. Okay? That's because the transient has the ability to do damage in ways that we don't, I'm not sure how well it's been researched. Medical science knows that certain frequencies affect different body parts in a different way. And we are sensitive to those. Our eyes are particularly sensitive. Certain glands in your brain are sensitive to those, and they will interfere with your sleep. I have read where they've put in white LEDs on street lights, and it's messed up the things. The last thing on there is, as far as transients go, is over 50. For every mammogram that a woman has, it increases her risk of breast cancer 1%. Okay. Now, I've shot my time. Do you want a story?
I think out of respect to time, we'll take one offline, but I love your stories, so I hope you hang around. Yeah, not very loud.
My name is Dean Wall. I just wanted to say I saw the video on the mayor this last week where he got arrested in school, but and that was nice of you to do that for the kids. But I wanted to basically talk about the parking for Davis High School. Yesterday I had to go to the hospital for a procedure that I had to have done, and I left at 20 to 7. And at 20 to 7 there was 8 cars parked from Stockdale's house all the way up to the school and in front of my house. And that was 20 minutes before 7 o'clock. And there was only 10 cars in the Davis High School parking lot. And so parking on the street is the preferred method of the students parking. And I stopped, and every single one of those cars that was parked on the street had a Davis High School parking sticker in it. And yet, instead of parking in the Davis High School parking lot, they prefer to park on the street, partially because they know that the city's not going to enforce the code, at least not right now, and the fact that it seems to be easier for them to park there. I mean, there was only 10 cars in the parking lot, or at least on the south side, at least where I live, and 8 cars were already on the street before 7 o'clock. And it just, you know, to my opinion, it tells you what the students think of what the city is doing or not doing at this point as far as enforcing parking that we have there right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dean.
Just by way of clarification, I was in front of an elementary school class with a couple of police officers, and they thought it would be fun to see what it looks like for me to get arrested, but.
Demonstration.
You worried
And
there?
then it was on Facebook, so. But Dean, when I met the scouts today, said, "Did you know the mayor got arrested?" And it was kind of funny to see the looks on their faces, so. Any other items for call to the public?
It wasn't too embarrassing.
No, I appreciate it. It's funny. Just thought I should clarify.
Hi, my name is Emma West, and I'm here also to speak about the Davis High parking issue. I know that there's been a lot of conversation, and I appreciate the listening that you've done and the research that you've done. I've written all of you, and I appreciate the responses that I've had from one of you. I just want to say that having lived in my home before the signs went up, before any restrictions were allowed, and having lived, been there since the restrictions are there, I know what's going to happen if we allow 90 more spots that are unrestricted. They're going to fill up. We're going to have, our neighborhood's going to be full of cars every day, especially because sophomores will be allowed. So we're not going to eliminate any kind of problem. We're just going to possibly add to it. And I think that's one of the unintended consequences that can happen if we start letting any unrestricted parking happen. We're going to end up with kids who are going to come and hear that there's a few spots open, and you can bet that those sophomores that have licenses are going to respond to that. We're going to have curb-to-curb parking again. I know that there will be places where it will be eliminated with around driveways and whatever. But at the core of the problem is behavior, and there's no way to make a rule that will control that. It's the school's problem to control. We live there. We as residents did not create this problem, and we have no legal power to solve it. So we are relying on you, our elected representatives, to give us the consideration that you would wish for your own neighborhoods, to not be full of more dangerous driving with our little kids around. We live there all day. Not everybody's home all day, but I am. And I don't want to just be where I can just look out and see cars everywhere. I feel like it's not going to solve any problems to just do the curb painting. We need to have the signs up so that they're visible. I think the rule that's already been made of changing it from a criminal to a civil offense will help to solve the enforcement problem. Clearer wording on signs will be awesome, but I don't think that we need to complicate things by adding more than that. I think we can solve it in the simplest way and let the residents have the peace and dignity and neighborliness of a neighborhood free from being an extension of the Davis High parking lot. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's John McCleary, and I echo what she said. Many years ago, after I got off this council and I served with a couple of you here, we had problems with signs being put up as far as the yard sales and that in town. At that particular time, I volunteered, and I did that on a Friday night and a Saturday, went around and took them down when they were illegally put. I'm suggesting that we do the same thing with the parking problem now. Put the signs up, state whatever you want. You've changed the code as far as what type of fines they'd be. I would personally volunteer to go around as a parking lot,
not parking lot monitor, but giving out tickets, whatever you want to call it. I'd volunteer to do that on a random basis during the week and during different parts of the day. Now that would solve, I think, the problem, because really the signs are there and right now they're not being enforced. The police department, if they don't have the time, you have a volunteer that would do that. I would not charge you anything. If you had to pay me to do that, I'd charge you $1 a year, so it would be legal from that part. Again, it's the enforcement is all that we're doing. We're jumping through a lot of hoops just to get somebody out to write some tickets. Now, I understand that's 180 days. All we're worried about here with the school in effect there, I would make sure it would be out there every day or every few days at random to where nobody would know when I'm coming, so they would park in the right places. I'd be very justified with what I do. I'd turn those tickets into whoever you designate them to. So that's another option for you to look at tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Kaylee Chamberlain. My husband and I own a residence on 300 East that is adjacent to the Davis High School auditorium parking lot. We do not want our front property line to be an extension of high school parking, and we particularly do not want the front curb in front of our property painted. I'm a former teacher, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a voter, I'm a mother of school-aged children. I willingly pay taxes and vote in favor of bonds that support public education. It is the responsibility, the insufficient parking at Davis High School is the responsibility of the school district, and it should not be imposed on local residents. It is the responsibility of city government to represent the voice of the people in these issues. If enforcing parking signage places undue burden on city resources, I believe that city officials should work with the school district to reach an amicable solution. The parking analysis that has been conducted earlier has proven that restriping the parking lots and along Main Street or providing a park and ride option for students are the best option for providing the hundreds of parking spots that are actually needed. Painting neighborhood curbs is a non-solution. It will perpetuate the current problem. It is confusing to students, it is irritating to residents, and it is a burden on the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Willie Dunford, and I first want to say that I love the residents of Kaysville. I consider you my friends. I love the traditions of Kaysville. I love the Star on the Mountain, the 4th of July, the breakfast, all that make this a wonderful place to live. And I appreciate you, Mayor Hyatt. I appreciate each of the council members. Appreciate what you do. I want you to remember, though, that you are elected officials, and there are many, many who give untold hours to make this a friendly and a happy and a wonderful place to be. With the election of you have the responsibility, I believe, probably the biggest thing is to represent the voice of the people. From my perspective, I do not think that the voice of a very small percentage is being heard. We are 100%, the people that Jeff and I have talked to, do not want parking in front of our homes, painting the curbs, anything. I would just ask you really, if it was taking place in your neighborhood, on your streets, what would you want to have happen? 100% of the people we have spoken to are in disagreement, in opposition of this. We have come to the council time and time again with safety issues, with other issues that are inconvenient, all the things that we have talked about. And I feel that it has almost fallen on deaf ears from what I feel. So I would ask you, please, to consider where we are and what you would have in your area if it was you. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Dunford. I was hoping to avoid taking another 3 minutes of this, but I do have a couple things to follow up, and I sent each of you an email with more recommendations and 10 reasons why the painting the curbs was not an adequate solution or possibility. So my wife and I put together a petition expressing the feelings of our neighbors, and we have over 120 signatures on these that represent almost all the neighbors in our community, in our neighborhood, and a bunch that live around us that are also aware of the situation. And 100% do not like what is being recommended from the city. One individual stated, if this was in my part of town, I would be livid. So let me just, I've got a copy of this for each of you so that you can see the signatures, see the individuals that are on here. But basically, it first points out that we love Davis High School. We did move there, knowing that we were close to Davis High School. We love the activities, the band, the announcements, I mean, everything that we go through there. Our concern is with opening up the neighborhood for student parking. We also don't want the curbs painted, and we recognize that since this really isn't going to, even if they gave the 90 parking places that they have looked at, it's not going to solve a school problem. And so we say, why? Why are we even doing this? The events of the high school are fun and exciting to us, but as I've said, the parking is not. A lot of the individuals live in our area. Have only moved there lately, and they know they were by the high school, but they didn't know that they were going to be getting into a parking issue. So we really are just looking for what we already have. But I have a question for each of you. Have you asked your own neighbors how they would feel if your neighborhood was to be painted and student parking allowed? Have you asked anybody how they feel? As you take time in the council, I'd like to hear the response to that, because you need to hear what people feel. And as we talk to these 120 people, we found out how people feel, and there's some pretty intense feelings related to the area because of experience that they've had. In Mayor Hyatt's recent State of the City talk to the Rotary Club, he said, "We will continue to focus our financial efforts on livability, including recreational activities, parks, sense of community, low crime rates, amazing schools, a focus on the family, and zoning conducive to maintaining property values in a small town feel. If you want to afford our neighborhood livability, sense of community, a focus on our families, and zoning conducive to maintaining our property values and a small town feel, you won't force this proposal on us. The school and their students have options. If this proposal is forced on us, we lose options. I feel it's time for the city to stop trying to solve the parking issue at the high school. It's their issue. We've given them adequate suggestions that we can help with as a city, and I think that's where our responsibility ends. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Aaron West. I also live in the neighborhood adjacent to the high school, and I'm here to talk about parking. I don't have anything of substance to add to what people have already said. I just wanted you to know why I'm here. I agree with what's already been said. And I know this is an emotional issue. When people's homes, neighborhoods, and cars get involved, emotions are always going to run high. But I think you can look past the emotion and just look logically. The right thing to do is to allow residents to park in their neighborhood and not allow permit-free parking for high school students in the neighborhood. I think that's the logical, safe thing to do. And I hope that's what you'll do. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Bridget Olson. I am a current or a new to Davis County. I come from the South Salt Lake Valley area, and my husband and I were attracted to Kaysville. We purchased a home 3 years ago, just right next to the high school. We absolutely love Kaysville and everything about it. We came from a small town in Manti as well, and we were looking for the small community feel. We were attracted to the curb and gutter that Kaysville and that little community offered, and that is why we are here. If I were to be searching for a home in that neighborhood with brown and yellow curbing, I would probably not be looking at a home there. The curb value is and the appeal is what we came here for. And like others have said, which of you would like to have your sidewalks painted brown and yellow? I have heard a lot of solutions that I've been excited about and that would be more cost effective, higher class, and less maintenance. And I wonder what we are thinking to have curb and gutter painted. Just doesn't make any sense to me. So I hope you'll listen to our concerns in the community. We absolutely I love where I live. I love the drums. I love everything about the high school and living close to it. It has some drawbacks, but it has some real perks, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm not in support of doing curb painting. It sounds circus-ish, if you want to put it that way. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Any other items for call to the public? Thank you. Hearing none, we will close call to the public. Appreciate the comments that have been shared, and we'll be addressing this more in depth and as we move through the agenda, just a few items coming down. Next item on our agenda is old library proposal discussion. Turn the time to City Manager Shane Scott.
Mayor and City Council, following up on our discussion a couple of months ago regarding the status of the old library, we've asked Scott with JRCA to come and talk to us about some of the proposals that we have discussed individually and collectively for that building. I think right now what staff's looking for is some direction on the future of the building, the size, what exactly happens to it. I think as Scott goes through his presentation, it'll jar some questions from you, and I think that discussion will be productive. We, as you probably know, we budgeted this year for the design of this building, whatever that is, and so we just kind of want to know what that design looks like as far as you're concerned. So maybe we could turn the time over to Scott and let him introduce himself and what he's going to do tonight.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate it. My name is Scott Holmes with JRCA Architects, and I'm happy to be back in front of this body this evening. It's been a few months since I last stood in front of you and presented the original draft master plan. Roughly, I think it was November of 2015, if I recall. So. And as I move through this presentation, again, please feel free to ask the questions that are on your mind or may need some further clarification. So back in late last year, Shane invited me to meet with him and start this process again about what to do with the library building. We understand over the last year or so, or maybe a little less than that, the community has been involved in providing their input as to what actions the council should pursue for this building, whether it be a reuse or maybe some other alternatives for the building. So what I want to do here briefly is just, again, reorient the City Council and the residents with the master plan draft. We're not going to go over that draft tonight. That's already been we've still posted on the website, and I believe this body has run through it in detail over the last year. Again, the original draft we presented in the City Council meeting back in November of 2015. The tasks included evaluation of existing city facilities, development of space needs assessments, and planning recommendations to support both current and future needs, not only on a physical facility level, but also for staff level. Tonight, we are reevaluating and further defining recommendations specific to the library building itself. We are not planning on discussing any other portions of the master plan draft that'll come in future sessions as they arrive. We're also here to incorporate, or excuse me, this update is to incorporate input from the committee for the old library, as previously stated.
Sorry.
Oh, there we go. I guess that'll keep me from squinting as well.
So sorry.
It's hard to get that in.
There you go.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, it's a little better.
Good job, Barry.
No, funny.
That's right.
Thought we all had to have our eyes checked for a sec.
It's not good when the presenter's squinting, is it? Also, what is the future of the Stewart Art Gallery? Again, the former library building houses the Stewart Art Gallery. Is this still an appropriate space to house that gallery? Is the size sufficient? Are there potential future plans or thinking to enlarge the facility, maybe potentially relocate it? Those are some questions that should be reflected in this discussion as well. Is the investment in repurposing the library building the best approach? Or again, as we will discuss, some other alternatives to reinvestment in the current facility. And also provide updated cost information to this body. I would assume that most of you know over the last year or so, our Wasatch Front, north to south, has experienced quite the building boom, and thus cost of projects and construction have seen an increase since we last met with you. So real quickly, just to organize or orient everybody with the facts of the building. Constructed in 1944, the building provides historical value to the community and is context sensitive. And of course, decisions regarding the use or replacement should warrant public input and support, which again is what you've, the task you've undergone in the last year with the community involvement. Again, as I mentioned, the facility houses a Stewart Art Gallery, which I understand is only accessible via tours or scheduled tours at this point, so nobody is there receiving people on a day-to-day basis as it was accustomed to more so when the library was actually a library. Again, the remainder of the building is vacant and not being utilized for municipal services, an unused city asset. For future long-term use, the building will require substantial improvements and replacement of building systems, which would also include a seismic upgrade. That reflects back into our original master plan draft as recommendations. To reflect what the original master plan draft for this facility outlined was to create a new Kaysville community development and legal building. This would involve moving community development out of the city center here, both planning and zoning, engineering, as well as the building department, remodel the existing building, and then remodel the vacated spaces within the municipal center. When we did originally create our needs assessment, it came to light that a future legal department may be in place in the future of Kaysville City. Therefore, the consideration to potentially house those individuals that would create that body in the city to be located in the former building. So now we'll discuss the options. Again, these are a combination of our original master plan draft recommendations, as well as incorporating guidance from the library committee over the last year. So option A is a change in use with minimal construction. So what this would reflect is the Stewart Art Gallery and Museum would stay where it is with either minor improvements or again, some general cleaning, some upkeep, housekeeping activities. We would recommend patch and repair the building and systems as needed. Go in and identify and remedy any current issues that can be completed, and also address any maintenance issues with mechanical systems, also including any carpeting or painting or things of that necessity that would be required. Create minimal construction to create usable space. Again, the building has not had any attention to it to create any type of office space or public interaction or defined spaces at this point. The financial investment in this option is considered low. Option B would be a change in use with complete remodel and upgrades. This is actually broken up into roughly 3 phases. The slide does represent 2, and I'll identify the third as I move through the slide. Phase 1 would be remove and temporarily store the Stewart Art Gallery and Museum. While Phase 2 commences, again, create either the Kaysville City Community Development and Legal Building as previously recommended in the draft, or create the Kaysville City Community Development and Stewart Art Gallery and Museum per the following space plan, which I will show to the group here momentarily. Phase 3 would be then remodel the existing municipal center building as determined. Previous draft indicated some work, not only in this portion of the building with the council, dais, audiovisual systems, lighting systems, but also included some other remodel functions within this building, mainly dealing with the restrooms and the public area. The financial investment in this option is considered high. Option C would be a complete building replacement, so demolish and replace with new construction to meet both current and future needs. Future needs meaning this building replacement we considered a 50-year plus lifespan, and also intended to maximize and meet the overall future space needs of the city at the same time. Again, remodel existing municipal center, council, and community room. This room, again, as I previously mentioned in option B. The financial investment we consider to be mid to high range. The proposed floor plan, this is, again, I'll show you 2 options here. This is option B1. Some of this may look, again, familiar for those who were in attendance. The colors here are a little diluted, so if you want to follow along here with the pointer, north for orientation purposes is left in the plan view. The current access to the building here is at the south third. The north 2/3 of the building we propose to create the community development department. So again, this would house the planning and zoning, building department, engineering. Those would include separated access points for public to interact with staff, sub-conference spaces, shared workspaces, shared break rooms, staff toilets, long-term storage, spaces that were identified in the original needs assessment. The south half would be constructed to create, again, the future legal department that would have a shared conference room that could be jointly used by either department or by other city bodies as necessary. Option B2, again, to create the community development departments and also maintain the Stewart Art Gallery as is, and also create a shelled space for a future museum, keeping those two functions separate. So let's discuss what these cost ranges include. So again, the recommended improvements for both design, option B1 and B2, we recommend obviously demolition of the entire interior of the building, perform seismic upgrades to the building structure. This would include creation and completion of the building diaphragm, upgrade to roof joists and deck, construction of new shear walls, and also extend slab and structure where the current boiler systems and electrical systems are located. These proposals do include removing those systems in their entirety and replacing them with current technologies that are highly efficient and obviously would serve the building appropriately. The estimated cost for both options B1 and B2 is approximately $1.675 million. That equates to about $268, just under $269 a square foot. Again, these costs they're built upon our original estimates from late 2015 and includes cost increases that we've experienced over the last year, and also estimates for a late 2017 construction start. Option C is the building replacement. Let me give a little, I know this slide's probably a little difficult to see. The upper portion there, we wanted to give some parameters and guidance onto what a replacement structure might entail. Right now, the existing size of the former library building is approximately 6,700 square feet. And as we worked through the original needs assessment and identified, again, where the future needs of city space and staffing might be required, we want to ensure that in presenting a replacement option that obviously the city focus on ultimately constructing a facility that can house future staff needs and meet the needs of spaces as well, in conjunction with remodeling of this building at some point in the future. We've given some design values for above grade and below grade construction. Again, this is based upon an 8,000 square foot footprint. Again, a little more than 1,000 square feet above and beyond what the current library building currently occupies. We've given some multiple options here. The first option is a one level with an unfinished basement. An unfinished basement giving you the advantage of a blank slate, if you will. Also can be used as storage. You could also incorporate some maybe performing arts. Maybe you could also incorporate, relocate the gallery functions into those lower basement levels. But it gives you flexibility for to meet the future needs or undefined needs at this point. So again, we've given an idea of an estimate here, a total cost of just under $4 million, $3.9 million, again, with the assumption that construction would commence in late 2017, depending on, again, direction and guidance from the council. On the right side of this slide, we've given some alternate options, not to exclude any potential here, 2 levels with unfinished basement and also 2 levels with a finished basement. And you can see their cost here reflective at $5.9 million for a 2 level with an unfinished, Two-level with a finished basement is approximately $6.4 million. So just again, to provide some options and guidance, these numbers are not meant to be an end-all solution. It's just to provide the council with an understanding of what can be done and what potentially those cost impacts are to the city. Questions? Clarifications I can provide the council.
Just to be clear, on your first slide, you had a low option, and the low was still 1.6 million, right? And then your medium was 3.9, and then 6.4 on the three options that you're presenting.
No, I want to clarify on these, let's see here. Oriented back here on my list. The option A, which was the change in use with the minimal construction, we have not identified a cost associated with that. At this point, that is an undefined option. For options B, B1 and B2, with the floor plans I provided, that's where the cost information resides at the 1.6 million.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. Why is, or one question for me, I should say, why is the life of the library building, if it's retrofitted and redone, only be 10 to 15 years?
What we're indicating here is an estimated functional life. And oftentimes what we find in our public projects is in these remodel situations, an initial investment can be made with a vision of a certain departments or functions that want to be provided in that facility. Over time, some of those functions either may evolve or change, or you may find that a future need needs to be incorporated. Or maybe, again, the gallery function may want to be enlarged. So we wanted to reflect something that represents at least a good decade's worth of use. It doesn't mean that this is, again, set in stone, that after that time frame, it's expected that you won't use this building. It's just like anything, any tangible object. At some point, it'll run its useful course and timeline, and should really strongly be considered for replacement.
So if I were to put it a little different way, maybe it's not that the building itself would be structurally unsound and you'd have to rip down the building, but maybe the needs of the city would have evolved because it's a smaller footprint, and you may need to either build space somewhere else, or and the reason why you have the new building with a 50-year life is because it has a larger footprint, more square foot, and would accommodate more needs further into the future?
Correct, okay. Correct. And just to give a brief understanding of, again, back to the investment on a seismic upgrade, the recommendations and the costs that are reflected in the estimate give a level of improvement that will allow the building to maintain its function for a duration of time during a seismic event that will allow occupants to safely evacuate. With this level of structural and seismic upgrades, we do plan for a certain amount of damage to happen to the structure. However, the structure should remain standing to allow occupants to evacuate. Obviously, if we wanted to maintain the building in its entire form, that would be a substantially larger investment and time into upgrading the structure itself. And at that point, you come to a determination, well, is that investment really worth maintaining this existing facility, or is it time to replace it with a new structure that, again, will be up to current design standards and meet the future needs? So.
Scott, so if this council decides to do option B1 or B2, and the space needs don't change of the city, will that building last for 50 years?
I can't honestly say it would last for another 50 years. Again, building being built back in 44, you know, it is, again, approaching its useful life. In today's standards, we at least design for a minimum of 50 years for lifespan of the building. Obviously, building into today's technology, we anticipate that to last beyond a 50-year lifespan. When we're coming and talking about vast improvements to an existing facility, again, just to improve it enough to keep it standing in its form, to address those life safety issues. You know, again, I can't say for certain that that building would last for another 50 years, given any time a seismic event could occur. So, does that answer your question, Shane?
Yeah. And I guess I'm less worried about seismic events and more just regular wear and tear on a building. I think it'd be important for this council to understand if there's a difference in, I mean, there's probably an obvious difference in building new versus reconstructing what's
Correct.
there. But if it's virtually the same, I think that would be important for them to understand that.
Right. And to respond to the question again, then the amount of investment and improvement that we're recommending, you know, I do feel that the longevity of the building could last, again, beyond these 10 or 15 years. I would agree that that's a safe assumption to make. Would it, again, be sufficient for another 50 years? Typically, our current technologies in both HVAC equipment and standards of that nature usually last anywhere from a 25 to a 30-year lifespan. You know, again, roof systems, we've recommended replacing the roof system as well. Generally, those at the 20-25 year, you start looking at replacement. So again, keep in mind that there's ongoing maintenance and upgrades that this building would still incur beyond that time frame of roughly 15 to 20 years.
So is the idea here, Mr. Scott, that getting some guidance from the council on a direction is going to help in the upcoming preparations for our budget? Is that really our timing, or is it?
No, not for budget, but we've already budgeted to design this building.
Right.
So right now, we don't have any idea what if I were to tell Scott, go design this building, he'd say, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
You want to start over? You want to do retrofit? What do you want to do?
The only reason why I ask is prior to this meeting, we had a discussion, a 2-hour work session about roads, and received a report that if we were to, right now we will receive about $1.2 million a year in gas tax money that we use to fix the roads. To try and get us on par, we need to increase that to $3 million a year every year for the next 4 years to get our roads back on track. And I mean, if you were to just equate it to how you would accomplish that, like in a tax increase, it's similar to the one, if not worse than was discussed before. It's pretty significant, and there may be other ways to do it, but the reason why I guess I asked that is the presentation is very helpful and very insightful, and I think helps give us some guidance. It's probably timed as such that as soon as he went past option A, I kind of lost interest, especially when you consider the police station was $5 million, and we're looking at 6.9 for this, and you know that in my mind at least was a hey, if we have a big earthquake, this building cannot fail. You know, if we have a big earthquake and lawyers and well, never mind, I won't even go there. But in all seriousness, I mean, there's a certain level of public demand and need, and I don't want to like jump way forward, but my gut would tell me, especially on the heels of the discussion we just had 2 hours ago, anything that maybe I'm wrong, and maybe that's what we can kind of get some guidance from the council. Anything above a minimal investment, a 50-year building I think would be excellent, and a 15-year building in 10 years I think could be equally as excellent. But a 50-year building today, my gut would tell me that, especially after our last conversation, this council is probably going to be like, no, we really need to look. We need space here we really need space at City Hall, but can you accomplish that with a much more minimal investment to actually move those operations over, and then come up with a strategic plan that allows us to address expansion or replacement or whatever it is further down the road when, I mean, it seems like this isn't official, but it seems like every council can handle one really big effort. And I think from all of our meetings, and I don't mean capacity-wise, I heard Andy laugh, and that's not really how I meant. I just mean that our focus is on one really big, and it's been very clear that our focus right now is on roads. The idea of going from freeing up an extra $1.8 million a year for roads and then figuring out how to build a $6 million building, I just don't see that happening. I don't even see the 1.6 happening, to be honest with you, based on our previous discussion. But maybe the council could just chime in on if we all have that position that, yes, we have the need, minimal investment to get us by so we can start utilizing the building, what does that cost, and then pursue that direction, unless there's an appetite to look at something bigger. But I want to cut your presentation short, but that's all I could think of the whole time you were talking was, there's no way. There's no way. But
well, I was hoping to not compete with roads tonight. Roads are always a sensitive and important aspect of any municipality. So,
Mayor, I'll chime in. You've encapsulated a lot of what I was thinking as well, going back and forth from B1 and B2 to C, and we don't have a cost estimate for option A, but you mentioned you described it as being low compared to these others. And obviously it would be. The art gallery would stay as it is. We would do patch and repair to the building.
Correct.
And the systems to the minimum extent possible. Minimum in construction that will create usable space within that building. And I think for the short run, although I'm always of the opinion, or always would prefer to try to play the long game over the short game. I think with regard to the needs that we have with roads and the discussion we had 2 hours ago, those are going to, I think, take priority over other larger projects that the city could undertake. I do think we clearly need space in that building. I think for purposes of this year, and potentially even this council, probably just trying to use the space as best as possible for as inexpensively as possible is probably the best bet for now. But I do want to, I guess I championed the long game, but I want to make a comment about that because I think, as I've discussed, I really appreciated the library committee that got together and discussed what to do with that building, and their input on that was very important. They did acknowledge that the committee itself was not unanimous in terms of what their recommendations would be for the use of the building. Some were, most I think by far were interested in preserving the building, but some were indicating that they thought it would be best long-term to replace it. I think that maybe not this council, but a future council certainly probably needs to tackle that particular question. And I, just looking at it in my opinion, and I'll just throw this out to the council, having lived in Kaysville, virtually all of my life, I don't share the nostalgic attachment to the building itself. I went there as a kid and checked out books for years and did story time and all that kind of stuff in the building. But I think, as with Davis High School and a number of other buildings, it's probably outlived its usefulness in the long run and probably needs to be replaced. Now we can build it to incorporate some of the architectural elements that are in it, the rock and whatnot. I think that would be a clear must, but I think long-term, it's my opinion anyway, that I think the building probably needs to be replaced with a more useful building long-term. So, but in the short game, I think we're stuck with option A, personally. Or maybe some hybrid of option A and option B with some more serious modifications to the building, but again, cost being the factor.
Right, I think it would be prudent if, again, based upon the guidance of the council and with staff, I think it'd be prudent at this point to take a step back with the option A and try to further develop a plan that we can come back to and present to this body again with some alternatives, not only to layout, but also, again, further prioritize where the needs are in the building to, again, get by with the short-term aspect as opposed to a long-term investment.
Did option A, does it need seismic?
Not necessarily.
Okay. That's what I
Not
thought.
necessarily.
From the historical guy that was here on one of the committees I sat in on, he was actually impressed with the quality of the building. I don't know if he climbed in the attic or what, but he mentioned the trusses look good, the walls look good. Your assessment's awesome. Obviously, you have a lot more experience than I do in that arena. But I see the nostalgic of the building. My opinion is definitely staunchly to keep it, and we don't need to skimp on a remodel, but it definitely needs, there's 2 people in this office right now that share an office. Is that correct, staff? We've got 2 guys that share it. Yeah, 2 full-timers and then maybe a couple part-timers that share. So we definitely need office space. And, and if we do go with a legal staff, I don't know if we need a whole wing of a building. And this is my opinion. That's all.
Oh, of course, of course.
Grain of salt.
Of course.
But I'm more of a wants over needs type of individual and a practicality individual. And, the way I see the city functioning now, we've functioned so long, to where we're at. We went through probably one of the biggest construction booms the city will ever see. And I think we're kind of over that hump a little bit. I just don't know longevity if we need another big grand building. I think the square footage this would add to us, in a way that was restored. I think we could get plenty of years out of it. I would hate to put 300,000 or 400,000 even in it right now. If as Chris is mentioning, well, maybe we just, when the tides shift and you get a council that will do it, in 3 years, when there could be new council members up here or whatnot, I'd hate to dump 300 or 400K now on the premise that maybe they'll come in and tear it down in 4 or 5 years. And I honestly think we could get another 30 out of it, and that's just coming from what the other expert had said. And I agree with what you're saying. I think your 15 is you're saying, hey, strategically, you might want to tear some more walls out and redo that. And I think that's fine in 15 years, but I think the building, I think it'll stand the test of time.
Yes,
I don't know if there's a need for all this space.
And I think, again, to reiterate what I previously said on more of a scheduled priority, that would allow us, again, to identify those immediate needs to maintain the building as it is and become occupiable again, if you will, to meet current staff requirements and space needs. And what that allows us to do is to really nail down specific costs that are impacted. So in getting a total back in front of this body for input before we continue to proceed. That's something I can work with staff very easily in conducting a stronger plan with option A that again we can continue to evolve and work on until it's an acceptable plan for this body.
Well, forgive me for the awkwardness that we're all just aimed at you. It's not really meant to be addressed at you, right?
Oh, no.
But, last thought would be if option A, do you have a hip shot gut guess on option A? You'd probably hate to say it, but are we talking half of option B or?
I don't like to, let me say I don't like to. I try to refrain from just blindly throwing some numbers out there.
I have a hunch guess, and being in the background too, but I get it.
Yeah,
I just
in my investigations and the work we've done in the master plan and understanding where the current systems the state that they're in, remediations that have been recommended by our engineers that have taken full evaluations of the building. It would be my recommendation that roughly about $500,000 would be an appropriate amount to budget for. Again, that's a starting point. That doesn't mean that the project ultimately has to cost that much, but at least a realistic number that would get off on the right foot, so to speak.
Just in conclusion, the conclusive thought that I have is I would rather let the building sit. This is once again just my personal opinion. I would rather see the building sit than for 3 years. And if a new council wants to spend, $5 or $6 million, than spending $500,000 now, or just spend a real, small $100,000, $200,000, get it to where it can be occupied. If that's really, kind of the underlying intention is get a council and spend $5 million again.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
I was just saying, I would echo that thought. I mean, we always hate the Band-Aid approach, but you talk about a boiler. It's got an old boiler in there, systems that we talked about replacing the HVA system here, which I think is 30 years old.
Correct.
And we ended up not doing that at the time, but same kind of thing. If there's a smaller, to say, maybe give us the 10-year Band-Aid option, where maybe you don't redo the HVAC, because why put in a 40-year HVAC system if the future council may look at doing something. It has sat empty now for 18 months. I remember when we anticipated the library opening at the new site, we kind of thought, okay, this gives us some options and gives us some ability to expand. I think the northwest corner, there's that slopes a little bit to that, so maybe you don't want a chair with wheels in that office, but knowing what the Band-Aid, I don't want to call it that, but that feels more like what we can afford right now, and maybe a couple versions of Band-Aid might be nice to know, because I don't see spending $75,000 of the $500,000 on redoing all the HVAC systems. Andy's maybe looking at me saying, "Excuse me, what about it's 100 degrees?" But if it's a 40-year system that's going to go in a building that we might last, it would be nice to know what the option A, and maybe give us some subsets of option A, an A, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I would tend to agree with what Councilmember Adams just said. If we go too high, then it's like, why do it? On the flip side, we've got the space and we have the need, and we've had the space and the need for more than 18 months, but we've at least had the space for 18. It would be nice to get some kind of direction on what to do, even if it's temporary.
Correct.
But does anybody disagree, or do you want to give that guidance?
I hope my comments didn't disagree with that.
No, I think that's what Chris is saying too.
That's largely what I was saying.
I personally think that right now this is probably the approach, but there is so many. I think that the citizens and us alone, we need to understand that these aren't the only options we could do. I think that 10 years from now, say we limp along for 10 years, we might look at it completely different than what we're looking at it now. And I kind of disagree with the boiler thing. I do know that on some of these furnace systems, when you put them in, these boilers are so inefficient that literally it's just 5 years and they're paid for, just in what you save in savings.
That was a totally unqualified comment,
okay.
but
so
just giving an example.
I'm just, Andy knows that. So I would like to see that, but I agree with everything that's being said here. We don't have the money to be doing a $6-7 million deal right now. And I think we need to look at it down the road. There is so many options that you could do. Like, for example, Farmington built a great big one, but you know what? They rent more than half of it out, and they make half their payment by renting it. And now they got a future to be able to, to expand when they have a bigger city. There's a lot of things that we could do. You could put a basement in and turn around and rent that out until you need the space. But I think right now is probably not that decision. I think we take care of our current needs, and then this is something that for another council down the road to probably take a look at it, where we have better information and a better vision of what the city wants.
I won't add to anything that's already been said, because I largely agree that, there's so many other things. When in our work meeting, we were talking about maybe a fire substation and the need to go to a full-time fire, and so maybe you can find it, but that's the problem. You find a little bit out of the general fund, now all of a sudden you're out of money, and then maybe there's a more pressing need. Having said that, it does. And again, I'm not an expert on HVAC systems either, or what really needs to, devil and the angel is always in the details. So if you could get to a place, and I guess my only questions would be, and apparently that's already been answered, that it would be, although it could take a seismic upgrade, it's probably safe for occupancy. I guess that would be my only concern. It's not going to crumble, when you get a 4.2 earthquake and people are going to be killed or anything like that. So I guess that would be my only question there, not knowing. The other thing would be, clearly define in option A exactly what we need right now, and then later down the road, I tend to agree with you, Councilmember Snell, that I don't know that a 1944 building is really necessarily a historic thing. So at the time when you do have to address more space 10 years from now, maybe you're looking at a new option and something that could still house the museum, who knows at that point. Right. But at this point, yeah, maybe just clearly define what space is needed, because I think like most of us have been through the offices and can see that there's a need for some additional office space.
I think in the year 2044, though, it will be a historic building, and if it was completely removed today, we remove the gradual historic value that we're building around here from a historical standpoint.
I would argue that what's historical about the building is in the building and in that museum and in that the LeConte Stewart Gallery. I think that's the primary source of the historical value of that building. And preserving that is obviously important.
Appreciate the argument.
Correct. And that even comes down back to, again, to the HVAC systems, in maintaining those antiquities, if you will. It's very important to maintain that climate as accurately as possible. So, again, back to the boiler, same comment, Mayor, is you get to a point where if you're reinvesting in this elderly technology, if you will, there's a point where it just doesn't become feasible anymore. And so even in the short term, when you talk about removing it and replacing the system with something that will suffice for the next 10 or even into 15 years, that's still a prudent decision to make as well, instead of continuing to feed that monster.
And my thoughts there were more, all the rage it seems to be like in government buildings is geothermal heating and being LEED certified, and that works great, especially a simple upgraded HVAC. I'm all for, but I think there's a fine balance there between what's reasonable and what's long term. But I think staff probably has enough direction or guidance from the council to maybe come back with something a little more
refined.
I was going to say watered down, but yeah, refined sounds a lot better. So. All right.
Just one more quick question, though. I'd imagine if you're talking option A, so you're talking instead of millions, tens of thousands or something, a lower figure. Is that something, I'm trying to think of the budget picture in my mind, but is that something, I would imagine that would be something that could be absorbed, other than you're taking one away from another priority, but
right.
That's a fairly important priority. Is that something that could just be absorbed from general fund?
I think the answer is absolutely, but it's just exactly what you've said. We'll have priorities, and we'll look to you to set those priorities and say, we want 3 firefighters, and we want to do this building, and we want to throw a bunch of money into roads. Which ones don't you want to do?
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you can't get to the library, what good is it? Building.
Scott, thanks for coming and giving us the update.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is department report. Turn the time back to Mr. Belknap, our Public Works Director, who joined us at 5 for our roads discussion.
Mayor, could you adjust that to make that clearer? Thanks.
Thank you. Geez, that's really loud, sorry. I am Josh Belknap. I'm the Director of Public Works here in Kaysville. Had an opportunity to come in here a little bit earlier talking about roads. And I'm grateful to the council for that discussion there. Excuse me. There we go. All right, so Kaysville City Public Works, what we intend to provide here is kind of a high altitude view of who we are and what we do, and touch briefly on kind of what we're doing currently in the city right now. So Public Works consists of 3 main sub-departments. There's other portions of what we do that we're not as involved in. The streets, water, and stormwater are what take the majority of our time and resources. The department is comprised of our liaison, Councilman Adams. We have a secretary, Amanda, that takes great care of us. We're grateful for her. We have 15 full-time staff, including myself, 1 part-time staff, and today we're advertising for seasonal employees. So if you know anybody, we're looking for 2 great people. One thing that I'm really big on, and have been big on this since I started interviewing with the city, is the city mission statement, and that's something that I have posted in my office, something that I try to talk about quite a bit, and I realize that I might be maybe public enemy #1 for some people in town. There's problems from time to time with infrastructure and whatnot, but we really believe in and strive to uphold this mission statement, which is to enhance the present and future quality of community life in Kaysville through the delivery of effective, efficient, and equitable services. So that's sometimes easier said than done with construction work, with different situations and scenarios that we're working in, but that's really what we're striving for, is to give a good product and to do that in a good way. So first off, talking about streets, we have a street foreman, and I believe 3 or 4 employees that work under him. The LTAP report that we recently got estimated that there's about 168 miles, and that's always expanding. We're closely or quickly approaching 200 miles of paved public roadways. And we have 2 small portions of concrete roadways on Deseret and I believe Country Mill, but for the most part it's all asphalt. They are in charge of snow plowing, which this has been a tough winter, and we've been trying to keep up, and really proud of the effort that these guys have given, and we admit that there's definitely room for improvement there. That's tough on time. A lot of overtime, a lot of extra, funds put into new plow blades, salt, etc. That's been a huge undertaking there. Also, when the snow melts and things warm up, they're in charge of road maintenance, overseeing projects going on, also performing smaller projects on their own, and signage in town. Our water department, we have our water foreman here, and appreciate him sticking around as long as he has. Again, another 2 or 3 employees that work underneath him, and they're charged with providing the city with safe and quality drinking water that we get from Weber Basin. They spend a lion's share of their time reading meters, so that's 8,000 connections for residential and 460 commercial, roughly. I think that might be a little bit higher, but yeah, that's a lot of these can be read via radio signal, but a lot of them are also requiring them to go to each meter, pull off the lid, get down there, and take a reading. So a lot of time and effort put in there. And with anything, there's problems in the system, or system needs to be upgraded, breakdowns, etc. So they're constantly monitoring that. They're taking samples of the drinking water, making sure that we don't have issues like we're seeing a lot in the news lately. And that requires a lot of classwork. The foreman that's here with us tonight, he is scheduled, as am I, to go down to some classes in St. George, and constantly trying to stay ahead of the game with that. Stormwater, they're in charge of delivering and monitoring stormwater systems, so that's anything that falls in town, whether that's snow that's melting, rainwater, those are the streams here in town, irrigation systems, etc. We're keeping a close eye on those to, number one, keep them safe. That's part of the SWIP that you see there, the SWPPP. Curb and gutter and storm drain systems that collect this and are designed to take that out of the city. I think the majority of our storm drain water heads west towards the Great Salt Lake. There's land drains that's just taking water away from properties. Some of them around homes to protect basements, etc. And also a lot of update and maintenance work that goes on there. So stormwater, I believe, there's the foreman, and then I think he has 2 employees. I don't know if there's 3. And the other 2 things that we slightly deal with, but don't spend a lot of time on, are sanitation, so garbage collection. That's something that we sub out with Robinson Waste Services. And then the sewer is almost completely handled by Central Davis Sewer here in Kaysville. They're a good partner to work with, just down on Sunset Drive. You grew up on Sunset smelling the sewer, and I'm kind of used to it, but some people don't particularly like that. So I'm grateful for both those partnerships and working with those entities. One thing that I'm not a big fan of social media. I don't have a Facebook page myself. But I know that there's problems that arise a lot in town, and in talking with other people that communicate with me, a lot of those things are talked about on social media. And if there is ever an issue, a problem, we encourage people to let us know, come talk to us. You can either come into the office there on Old Mill Lane, 721 West, or they can call us at 801-544-8112, and our secretary, Amanda, can direct the calls from there. If there's after-hours emergencies, there's the number there. That goes to an answering service in Bountiful that gets a hold of us, and usually very promptly we're able to respond. A lot of the guys live here in town or in surrounding areas. But yeah, we can't stress that enough, that, you know, a lot of things we don't know about until somebody's coming to talk to us about it. And sometimes they're not in a good mood, sometimes they're in a little bit better mood. But the important thing is finding out those things, people sharing that with us. You know, please share it on social media, but also come to us and let's make this an even better place to live and do business. So yeah, that's about it from Public Works. I don't know if you guys have any questions, but kind of the.
Do you have any updates on our road conditions? How
they are rapidly deteriorating as we sit here. So no, it's an interesting situation, but one that I have confidence that we can make improvements in. So
thank you. Any questions from the council for Mr. Belknap?
Josh, thanks for the report. Also, please convey our gratitude to your crews. They do work many times extra long hours plowing snow, and oftentimes they're up to their knees in holes in the ground trying to fix water leaks, and sometimes that's in the middle of the winter, and I mean, so they do dirty work that a lot of people don't do. I know I don't. And I'm just grateful, and I think I, convey the gratitude of the council to them for the work that they do.
I think most of them are watching right now, so I don't know if I should do like the Oscars, like a shout out to everybody, all my friends in Public Works, but yeah, they're good guys, and the city in general has tremendous employees, and feel grateful for the opportunity to associate with the staff, and the residents here in town are amazing as well, so.
I can only back up what you say about offering your information and your phone numbers and how approachable and accommodatable you are, to let everybody know that really he's dead serious when he says that. So it's nice to have you here with us, and your water foreman. Yeah, the approachability is great, and I encourage anybody to, come down and reach out to you. I know you spent some time, driving around personally to address concerns with people, and so
yeah, for
thanks,
sure.
Josh, and
that's our job. So appreciate people's patience and their trust in us, and we'll try and continue to earn that. So
Great job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thanks.
The next on our agenda is adoption of ordinance 1721, amending the certain provisions of the revised ordinances pertaining to the Parks and Recreation Department. Mr. Stevens.
Mayor Hyde, I don't know if it'd be permissible to maybe combine items 6 and 7. They are
related,
kind of one and the same. So if we talk about them, I'll talk about both of them kind of simultaneously.
Great.
So you see, annually we review our Title 12, which is basically the definitions of the structure of the Parks and Recreation Department, the ordinances, and some of the rules that are contained within this pertain to some parts, but the majority of the document is regarding the cemetery and some specific stuff up there. I would like to, as of late this afternoon, after reviewing the document with some people and other individuals, I propose a couple maybe modifications that I have here. I'll pass out to Jake, and he can. These don't change the content of the document at all. It's just simply rewording some things to make some clarifications, to make a couple of the paragraphs read a little bit better, a little bit more clarity. After reviewing it with Shane this afternoon about 4 o'clock, we decided to just make these recommended changes for your consideration. They affect the document that the supplemental document I handed you affects sections 12-1-3 and then 12-3-4. You can see the information that's contained in the original paragraph is just kind of broken out into 4 bullet points there to more clearly define and restructure some of the wording to make it read just a little bit more clear, so it's a little bit more understanding. I'll highlight some of the proposed changes. I won't go through the whole 15-page document unless you want me to read word for word the document, but I won't. I'll just highlight in 12-2-3, which defines the hours of use for the parks. That has never been in there as far as a defined hour of use. We do have on occasion where we have people in the park after hours, and by not having an hour defined as far as the park closing, it hamstrings the police department as far as issuing a citation after hours. And so this simply defines the hours of parks for visiting from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., which we feel accommodates most everybody that should be using the park at appropriate hours. If they're in there at 2 o'clock in the morning, chances are they're not doing something that should be done. So we'll leave it at that. As we move in through and that's pretty much all of the parks dealing in 12-2. And 12-3 is the longer portion of the document that deals with the cemetery. As you read in your packet, just the highlighted red is, I won't bore you with the details, but just clarifies some of the language and some of the plats that we have in the cemetery to clarify some of the issues we have there. But if you'll turn to 12-3-4, this is also the paragraph or a few of the bullet points that we are clarifying in the supplemental that we handed you there to make a few of these read just a little bit better in that section. And then highlighting if you have any questions about any of this, feel free to ask. We are adding or recommending for your consideration an addition in 12-3-11, number 15, letter F. It reads, headstone setting is at the discretion of the section or designee during inclement weather. That just states that we have a lot of times headstone companies that want to come during the middle of the winter when there's snow on the ground and to set a headstone. And in order for that process to occur, we have to remove the snow, blow the snow, which then compounds some of our problems that we, and so that just simply says during inclement weather that it's up to our discretion whether we will permit a headstone to be set. And then in 12-3-13, we're also here defining the hours of the cemetery for the same reasons in the parks. For some continuity, we kept the cemetery hours the same as parks, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. It also allows the police to issue citations to give them some more bite as they encounter people after hours in the cemetery. 12-3-14, we're simply adding a couple sentences and removing a couple sentences. We're proposing to remove number 5 that stipulates that no motorcycles are permitted in the cemetery. We're recommending just removing that sentence. Doesn't make a lot of sense with where we are in today, and maybe back when this was written, there was an issue with motorcycles in the cemetery, but the way it's written, if a motorcycle comes into the cemetery, we have to ask them to leave, which just doesn't make a lot of sense. Also in number 6, section D, the bringing of lunches into the cemetery was also restricted. We don't have a problem if someone wants to come and eat their lunch by their loved ones, so we're recommending the removal of that. Now, we are adding in number 6, letter H, just a situation that has occurred over time, just about electronic gaming and the interference that it has had with the sacred nature of the cemetery and the burials, making that so it's not a permitted use in the cemetery. We allow that in every park, any other public property, but the cemetery has a different nature to it, and electronic gaming and stuff doesn't belong in the cemetery. We have had instances where those doing that have interfered with the burial services, those that are up there grieving and stuff. And so those are kind of the highlights of the changes, and then some of the other stuff in there is just minor wording, but I'm happy to answer any questions or suggestions. But we recommend the approval of, as presented with the supplemental additions of 12-1-3 and 12-3-4.
Okay. Cole, thanks for the presentation. I also wanted, the point about electronic gaming in the cemetery and whatnot, that was brought about because there had been some complaints, some issues of interference with formal funeral burial, procedures going on, as well as the people who walk and whatnot in there, and then people are sometimes electronic gaming in their cars around the streets within the cemetery, kind of creating sometimes a big time interference with people who are just trying to navigate in the cemetery on foot. And it sounds like we have made a request to, I don't know if it's wherever it is, Pokemon,
yes,
whatever,
yes.
and Ingress or whoever does the makers of these games to withdraw the Kaysville City Cemetery from their system.
Yes.
And they have accommodated that, is that right?
Yes, Maria made that request, I believe about a month ago or so.
Yeah.
Yes, and
that was approved?
They have removed the stops.
She had to trade the city recorder's office for a new location, but
Yes.
she doesn't mind the additional interference.
Remove the stuff until 3 in my office.
Yeah, funny that you would say that, because I've actually seen people in here saying, oh, there's a sweet Pokemon or whatever.
And we want to emphasize that we are all of our public parks and properties are open to all of these electronic gamings. It's just the cemetery is just a different, it needs to be respected because there's loved ones that are up there, and some of these activities just don't fit with the nature of the cemetery. But Barnes Park can have as many Pokemon stops, gyms, whatever you want to call them. I don't understand the game, but I'm sure there's people out there that do, so.
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, that affects us because I walk there a lot, my wife. I've seen as much as 8 or 9 cars, and believe it or not, it's older people that's doing it.
That's true. And that's part of the problem is that it causes a little bit, even for the workers, the employees in the cemetery, as well as when the cars are circling, it's an unnerving feeling. What are they doing? Are they following me? Are they, it's not a place for that kind of activity.
And a lot of them are driving like this.
Yes.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
We stopped, just being out with the police a few months ago, and there were 3 different cars in there. It was after 11 o'clock, and it just seemed, just didn't seem right, and that was part of the issue. Is there's really nothing we can do. We can talk to them, but we really can't make them leave. So I think this is probably very, very appropriate.
Just a quick question. Isn't there like a curfew currently for Kaysville under a certain age not to be out? And is that at 11 or 12? Do you know? Or
I don't know the curfew policy. I don't know if
maybe
Chief
would know.
I believe it's midnight.
Is it midnight? I'm just curious as to maybe setting the times the same as the curfew times just to make it easier.
Yeah, I will certainly defer to the chief if he thinks that's a more wise. We're
I don't
open.
know if there's
So
a
we just wanted to
reason.
make sure that in our Title 12 or our code that we do define it. And so I'll, chief.
I don't know that we necessarily need the same.
Okay.
We just need something more specific in the parks.
For the
because
parks.
And the cemetery's been an issue too. I've had a lot of complaints about suspected drug use and cars just up there in the middle of the night. Nobody really knows what they're doing, but needles are found by some of the residents along there the next day. And this just gives us kind of an ability to do something about some of these things. And so the statutes as they're written right now just really are so vague, they're just not enforceable for us. So I do appreciate Cole for taking this on.
Yeah, and I agree there should be some kind of a limit, but I just was wondering if it might be easier if it were just the same time frame. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
And I'll just tell you the reason why we picked 11 o'clock, because some of our parks have sidewalk lighting, and some of those lights we shut down at 11 o'clock, just because they don't need to be on till midnight. And so that's why we picked 11 p.m., because that's when our sidewalk lights at some of the parks that do have them, that's when they go off. And so that's the reason why we chose 11, but that's open.
Will it be gates closed and locked, or?
In the cemetery?
Yeah. Or is
No.
that just kind of rule of thumb?
That's just a rule of thumb. I mean, in order to do that, then I'd have to have an employee go up every night at 11 o'clock, and that's just not.
No. If somebody is visiting a loved one, justifiably, is there discretion for chief's officers to,
Yeah, we're generally not going to issue a citation for something like that, but it gives us the ability to contact a driver and say, hey, the park's closed, cemetery's closed, can you pack up and take off?
And will there be signs posted now that we have, well, since we're going in this direction, are you going to have signs?
Yes, as soon as, if this gets approved, yes, that we will post the hours of operation, visitation, however you want to phrase it. We'll just, hours of use. We haven't determined how to word that yet, but.
Someone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the municipal code, the changes on the municipal code, Title 12.
I'll second that.
Think of a motion and a second for adoption of the ordinances as for both ordinances.
It is both, right? Yeah.
As outlined. Any further discussion? Councilmember Garn, will you start a vote?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thanks, Cole. Next on our agenda is parking proposal around Davis High School. I was going to make a joke about tabling it, but I thought there's some times to make jokes, and there's some times that it's just not appropriate, so I didn't make it. But then I kind of did. All right, so Andy, I think at our last meeting, we've received some great feedback by the residents who have sat with us for a couple hours now in tonight's meeting. And in the last meeting, I believe the council asked you to come back with another update or give us some options based on some feedback and discussions from the council. Is it you or Shane that's going to give us an update and then allow the council to have some discussion?
He wishes it was me, but it's him.
Yeah, what you asked us to review at the last meeting was some option that would allow both residents and students to park in the area of concern. And generically, the option that we've reviewed was to allow every resident, let me zoom into a standard detail of what the other map was showing. So what I did is I looked at the area of concern with each driveway. I allocated 10 feet on both sides of the driveway, and then I allocated 1 20-foot parking stall, typically adjacent to the 10-foot driveway, so they would have 30 feet in front of their home generally. That would be reserved for the residents. I also blocked off the corners, at least 20 feet from each corner, just for safety reasons. Most of those are already painted red. So with that criteria, then if there was whatever was left after I blocked out either side of the sidewalk and the 1 20-foot stall per each home, if there was a space that was at least 20 feet long, which is roughly the space you need for parallel parking, then that would be open and available for anyone else to park in, or for the resident to park in. It would be unregulated, just open parking, with the thought being that generally during those time frames, it would be used by students if they chose to use it. So that was kind of the setup that I went through. That doesn't show much, but you can see the black skip lines and see the red corners. You can see where the parking spaces would approximately be. I did this on the computer, not on the ground. So, if there's a fire hydrant or something that needs to be blocked out, that could modify it slightly. So the outline then is that we install the parking signs that indicate just roughly an example of what the parking sign might look like. I went to gold areas instead of brown, just because yellow is already a restricted parking zone color, so it'd be more recognizable if it was along those lines. May also be slightly more visible. No parking without a city permit, just so they understood it wasn't their Davis High parking permit that would allow them to park there in those painted areas. I'm suggesting 9 to 2 school days only. If that needed to go 7 to 2:30 or whatever time you determined, that's a minor detail. So we'd place those signs. When I calculated the number of signs for cost estimate, I assumed similar to what we have out there now, which would be 1 sign on each end of each block and 1 sign in the middle. So essentially 3 signs on each full block that was in the restricted area. Outline the criteria I explained. Some time frame, school days only, so there would be no restrictions in the summer or on weekends or in the evenings. I'm suggesting that we issue 2 permits to each household in the area at no initial cost, with some kind of replacement cost if they lose it or it goes away. Obviously, if the need arises, the area could be expanded to where if this pushes cars into the area west of Main Street, we can implement the same type of procedure in that location as well. Enforcement by the police department. Again, the enforcement would be relatively simple. If they're parked in a painted zone without a permit, then they get a ticket, regardless of who it is. Based on this, on the quick analysis off the computer, I designated about 80 resident spaces. And again, that's based on a full 20 feet. If it's 35 feet, maybe you get 2 cars in there, but I only counted it as 1 space because it only met that requirement. And approximately 91 spaces remaining that were at least 20 feet of length that would be open to anyone else, and that's just in the current restricted area. So based on what you said at the last time, I understood this was kind of the route you wanted to investigate. That's how I put it together. I think it allows for what you asked at the last meeting.
Thank you. Question for Andy from the council, for Mr. Thompson. I think he did exactly what we asked, the 4th or 5th thing that we've asked. And so at this point, I think the council's, this may be easier said than done, but is really at, I think at a point of making a decision one way or another. I'm not even sure I can remember all the options that have been presented off the top of my mind. So I would tell you that you could choose from one of those options, or you could choose, I suppose, to do nothing and keep what's there in place. But does someone want to start a discussion on where you're leaning, or after the feedback you've received today, what your feelings are?
Okay, I'll be brave here. I think there's some consistency in my thinking, because I was, as I thought about this, we've had various proposals and we've looked at it, and so when you're differing on the details, you think, okay, what's the core? What's the core value here? And I think for me, the core value was that, number one, the current system is unacceptable because it's really unenforceable. I guess you could redo permits and just leave it the way it is now, which is another option. I shouldn't have even brought that up. I guess you could do, just redo permits. But with, short of doing that, that's not really a good option. Status quo is not a good option. Then the other option of just putting up signs, that definitely becomes enforceable. I think that was our second option, which was 10 to 2. No parking between 10 to 2 on school days, except by permit, I guess, and in some ways, well, actually not by permit. That proposal was not by permit. So the core, I guess, is you're trying to manage traffic, and I do agree, and I think some others, I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I do agree that it's not the city's responsibility to provide parking for students at Davis High. On the other hand, I kind of had the idea that we're managing a resource. Can we manage it in such a way that we can control the chaos that would ensue if you just open it up completely? So if you just remove the signs and said, except for red zones, anyone can park here, first come, first serve. That, based on the history, that didn't work very well when that was done. So that also doesn't seem like a good option. So we were trying to do something with permits, and now with this latest option with paint, in order to try and manage the number of cars that can park there and mitigate some of the impacts to the neighborhood of having parking there and yet still have the resource of parking on the street. And so with all that being said, it looks like the enforcement costs are pretty similar. That's the biggest component, $18,000 of the 31, and also the signage is very similar to the permit cost, but probably the painting is easier to enforce and easier to prevent bunching up in one area of the city. So I agree with that. But I guess I am sort of wondering, and this is the question, for the number of spaces that we're getting available for the public to park, is it worth, I guess, the extra cost or confusion to do that for 90 parking spaces? Particularly when even the new school opening up in a year or two from now probably has a bigger impact than that. So that's the question in my mind, and I have to admit that I'm kind of, I recognize too that the residents very strongly don't want it, and I wish I'd maybe had the opportunity to ask the question, how much illegal parking occurs now? I mean, the signs, I guess the feeling is that the signs now, at least they're fairly effective, but there must be some parking there already. I mean, it's already a concern, and it's unenforceable. So I could probably, I'll stop talking. I could probably go either way.
No, that's fine. I'm not saying stop talking.
No, I'm just reining myself in because it's a difficult decision. I could go either way. I could go back to the 10 to 2, or I could say if we feel like we can regulate this, if we can mitigate the concerns. And I have to admit, for me, maybe the painting on the curb, not such a big issue, but it could be a big issue to somebody else. I really don't want gold on my curb, because I did take that to heart and say, if it were my house and I lived by the school, would I care if there were gold paint? Me personally, not. Maybe my wife would really vehemently disagree with that and say, I do not want gold paint on my curb. But to me, that wasn't the biggest issue. It's just, can we control the traffic situation with this plan that we have before us? Can we control it and mitigate the adverse impacts, still provide resident parking?
Yeah, this isn't scientific by no means. I talked to several teenagers in my neighborhood that drive, and almost every young man and young woman that live in our neighborhood, they all drive. And to be honest with you, they all drive their own cars. I mean, it's like, it's a sin to have two people in one car. It's just the way it is. And I asked them, I said, where do you park? And most of them park, it depends on if they go early or if they go late and everything. And you know what? They're parking in your neighborhood. And I told them, I says, aren't you worried about, getting a ticket or anything like that? And they go, no, they don't get tickets. The kids know it. I mean, it's unenforceable the way it is right now. And, there's part of me that says, I agree with you, Jake, that, a year from now, it's going to be a lot different than it is right now. Then there's part of me that says, you know what? These kids need to understand that life isn't fair completely. That I think there is a lot of things that the school can do to help out. In fact, I think the school has done very little to alleviate this. I mean, there's all kinds of different incentives they could give these kids and different options that they haven't taken advantage of. So I appreciate everybody coming and talking tonight. I'll just make mention, I appreciate this list, but I actually know quite a few of these people, and there's some that's not in your neighborhood, Actually, there's some that lives over by me. And in fact, one of them lives in Layton, but he did used to live in that neighborhood. But I think the whole purpose of this is would you want this in front of your house? And that's what it's about. Mm-hmm. And so it's a tough decision. And I can see that there's probably no good answer. I think this is enforceable. I talked to the chief of police, and this is enforceable. I mean, but the options and what you guys want to accomplish too, that's enforceable as well. So, I don't know, this is one of those decisions. One thing I do like about this is that if this just pushes parking in other areas, it's easy enough to take care of that. But it's easy enough the way you guys have it as well, of putting signs up and eliminating it that way too. So I guess the question before us is, that's it. Do we want to provide parking spaces for the students? Or do we, at least in these areas, or do we want to limit that and to be honest with you, force the school to do something about it. And I guess that's the question before the council. And I just don't think that we need to just keep hashing this thing back and forth. I think we've looked at all of it, and I think we just need to make a decision what would probably be the best for the people and the students and everybody else.
Just one more quick point too. I do worry a little bit about the paint, not just the snow in the wintertime, but I'm wondering how well that will really mitigate it. So in other words, until you try it, are you still going to, and enforcement is easier now, because if you're in a painted, if you're in a painted zone and you don't have a permit, then you would be ticketed, so you'd have more of an enforcement vehicle. But I'm just wondering how well students will adhere to that. Notice the sign, notice the paint, and then park in the right place, because it's one thing to have the rule and the paint and the sign. It's another thing, even though you're getting, and maybe a few tickets would help people remember, and I guess that's the answer to my question. So that, but it'd still be maybe a little hard to ensure that the rules are followed, I guess.
Yeah, but pain always brings change.
Yeah, that's true.
And,
That's
you
true.
know, and
if it's enforced, then yeah.
Well, yeah, it has to be enforced. That's the only way it could work.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I just had a few thoughts. You look at all the discussion that's been had on this issue, and can we get to 100% solving the issue? And it's not possible. I don't see how we 100% solve the problem for everyone. We've focused a lot of our efforts on how we make or don't make the neighborhood work. There's been some discussion, and I empathize with both, because I wouldn't want people parked in front of the entire part in front of my house, make it so that I couldn't park in front of there if I needed to. To answer that question, no, I wouldn't, and I think I would very much feel the same way. And then if you have others who come from a different part of town and say, you live in Kaysville, if you go and visit, would you want to be told you can't park there? Well, of course, the answer would be no. No, I pay taxes. I feel like I should be able to park on any public street. Anyone who tells you can't park on a public street, that just doesn't make any sense. And so I would think I would feel the same way. I still can't help but wonder if there are some. We're looking at the most convenient option. The high school, the new high school in Farmington, we heard some testimony that based on the growth patterns, that's really not going to reduce a lot at Davis High. But the action that we consider, if we were to consider this action, is pretty permanent. It's pretty, okay, we're going to make the move, and now it's really, really hard to, it's one thing to take out signs or change signs, another thing to try and scrape off the paint or revert if we find that the item's not needed anymore. And so I think the council is faced with a little bit of the dilemma of, we don't want to not do anything because then it feels like we're not solving the problem. But I can't help but wonder if we're trying to solve a problem, that it might be prudent to see if maybe in this situation not doing something could be at least a consideration, see what happens with the high school. I think about the church across the street, and that the church supposedly doesn't allow people, and I have not confirmed that or had that conversation with anybody, but they don't allow anyone to park at the church. They won't do it, they refuse it. And in that same vein of paying taxes, there's that part of me that's like, well, I think a large population probably participates in some manner with that same entity. Can you make the same argument? Should we be able to provide a way? And I'm not really sure we've exhausted that. Now, the church may have some universal policy that no matter what, it's not allowed, we just don't do it. But it would be nice to maybe exhaust it. Now, I'm not sure how many students would want to do it. I don't know that I would park there and walk over to 500 South and cross the crosswalk. I mean, that seems, we realigned Second North down by the rail trail just because, we were still afraid that people weren't going to walk that 10 feet just to cross on the crosswalk. So I think that may not be reasonable, may not be utilized, but at least it's some kind of a solution that could be provided. So, is there a chance that it gets better with time? And if the answer is yes, I think there's some consideration to say, well, then let's not be too hasty to fix something that we're not certain could get solved with time.
I don't know who brought the feedback. The church idea was brought up in the first or second meeting, and maybe it wasn't on council, or maybe it was that week after. Somebody said that's absolutely off limits. But I agree with you. That was the same sentiment I shared in, it was either meeting 1 or meeting 2, of, why can't we? With,
I think I can answer that, because the church
well, the liability.
doesn't. Yeah,
right.
They don't
I mean,
allow it.
that's kind of, and I get it. Maybe the liability is not arguable, but I just try not to live in the confines of a box when that parking lot's sitting right there, and it's, I'm not beating around the bush. We all know who pays for it. It's like 90%, like Mayor's saying, of who lives around here. So yeah, that's a tough one. And the paint was raised in the first, I believe it was in the first meeting. The paint idea was actually raised. And then, color-wise, I don't think it has to be gold. If people feel like that looks gaudy or whatever, it could be, a neutral tan or a gray. It's, but, I don't know.
My only thought with all of this is there's a lot of areas in Kaysville, not quite like living around Davis High School, that deal with issues with parking. And if the council comes up with a way to mitigate those areas when there is that problem, then there's a consistency on how to deal with it when you go forward, and then you don't have to go through all this. It's just one of those things that you would just have to implement, whether it be to move forward with this idea or not. I think the important thing is that there's consistency, so that when other people have the problem, then we can deal with it. So.
Yeah, I think from the outset, this is an issue that, I think we've all felt the dilemma of dealing with this, where the neighbors have absolutely rightfully expressed their concerns about going back to what it was like before, and I never have lived in the area, but I do recall the parking situation there, and even before there were four-way stops along 200 South. There was a lot of, it was really hectic in the area. Anyway, that's untenable. And yet the school is striving to find places where their students who can't park can park safely and be able to access the school. And I think they have a legitimate concern for the safety and well-being of students. And I think all along I've been trying to just see how best could the council try to thread the needle to accommodate both concerns. I'm not sure, after all that has been said and done over the last several months as we've been discussing this back and forth, that we've landed on a solution, in my opinion, that really does everything justice for 90 extra, or approximately 90 extra parking spaces. That probably doesn't buy an awful lot. Andy, I believe it's in the stretch right here along that north parking lot. There are some signs currently that prohibit parking. And I believe those are still up, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I think, from the very outset we've discussed, and I think that at least school officials have said in the past, that they were willing to, along school district property, except obviously in the areas, you know, nearest abutting the intersection and whatnot, that those areas, the signs could come down and public parking could be accommodated there. Obviously, that doesn't pick up, I mean, in this particular spot, we're talking about a handful of stalls, you know, of people to be able to park there. Yeah, approximately 5 or so. I mean, very, literally a handful. The additional thing that the school district has offered is to open up a portion of the driving range area to mark it for parking so that it they're able to park in there during the day when it's not in use as a driving range. As I recall, they said something like 40 or something in that neighborhood, extra parking stalls. I think, and as I've come to consider this and considering all the different factors related to it, unfortunately it's not on this map presently, but at the south end, I think, you know, well, maybe before I discuss that, I know, you know, dealing with a little bit of building issues within the LDS Church as part of my responsibilities, I know that the church does have a policy on that. I don't believe they'd allow, but it's possible, and I'm willing to approach the FM group or whoever may need to be contacted. It might even have to be the stake presidency that is jurisdiction over that building. They may be able to make individual accommodations for that, and that could be something that could be approached, but obviously that can't necessarily be relied upon. So beyond that, potentially the street of 500 East down to whatever is it, 550 South, where it connects at Main Street, at the south end of Davis High. Thank you, Andy. It's almost like you read my mind. Okay, so in this neck of the woods right here, going up to DATC, I don't know how, it's a minor collector, or I don't know what its designation is or what its width is, its build width. It's probably 55 feet.
It's wider. I think it's 70-foot right-of-way.
70-foot right-of-way, which means it's got, what, 55 feet of pavement, curb to curb? So potentially, we could accommodate, I probably wouldn't do it along the north side of that street since there's an entrance there, but potentially along this side, maybe we could accommodate some diagonal parking. Maybe we can do some additional things. I think there's still ability to maybe work with the school district and the city in an area that may garner actually more parking spaces, but also not have an impact on residences to accomplish largely the same goal. Now, granted, that's a lot farther away from the building, but, you know, walking a few extra 100 feet is not going to kill anybody. So, you know, I don't know, Andy, and that may be, again, I don't want to make you go back to the drawing board, and I'm not saying that we as a city should necessarily widen that street and bear the brunt of the burden for those costs, but it maybe at least investigate what could be done there to reasonably, and I know you don't like angled parking because that means we got teenage drivers backing out into lanes of traffic, but you know, that's a possibility, and maybe we even discuss with UDOT what could be done along Main Street, along the east side of Main Street that borders the high school, to potentially add diagonal parking there if there was additional space to be accommodated for backing. Instead of backing into a lane of traffic, they could back into a lane of, you know, a parking entrance lane, basically. Just some additional thoughts that would, I think, in the long run, add a lot more parking spaces. Obviously, there's behavioral concerns with that necessarily wouldn't be addressing to try to promote carpooling. But I think there are additional areas where we could try to work with the school district and with other entities to see if greater parking spaces with additional levels of safety and maybe even greater levels of safety could be accommodated. And
It almost feels like we maybe started down this road of it either has to be this or not this, where, and maybe even the message we inadvertently sent to the school district was that somehow the dialogue got to, you either need to allow us to park in the neighborhood or you're not supporting what we want to do. And I think you could, to your point, I think the dialogue could very much be, hey, look, we're not saying, sorry, it's not our problem, we're not going to deal with it. We're just saying we need to solve this problem without burdening the neighbors. So let's go. I mean, and it's almost just kind of setting that expectation, just to say if that's the direction the council wanted to go, just. I think it almost feels like we've gotten into this, either we do it or we don't do it, and then we either need to choose the neighborhood or we need to choose the high school. And I don't think it needs to be one or the other. Whether or not the church is a discussion, whether or not UDOT's a discussion. I look at that big field. I mean, it's not maybe that big, and I'm sure there's other technical issues with it, but I look at the parking lot here, and I know this section here to the ball diamond, that looks like something to me. This looks like something to me. That I'm not an engineer. This is a pretty wide spot. I have no idea what that looks like, but we've not, if we're going to spend that much money on enforcement and on installation and totally against the will of the neighbors, we could almost, partner or pitch in $1,000 to help them design what that looks like. I think if we even offered, they'd say, we don't want you to design how to redo our parking lot. But it almost does feel like we've kind of gotten to this. We either need to choose the neighbors or the school. And now the council's stuck choosing the neighborhood or the school, right. Which is different neighborhoods. And now you got this one or the other decision. And if the council was interested in taking that off the table, because in any other scenario, if this was Boondocks and they overfilled their parking lot and they were flowing into the neighborhood, I think we'd be on it. We'd say, sorry, it's not going to work. We gotta come up with something else, and we gotta work together because that's not going to work. I guess the difference is that it's another entity that we're all paying taxes to, so we have a little more ownership than a business that might. But if the council were to take a direction like that, it might give us a little more, with a very clear message. We would just have to follow up on that message to say, maybe we don't feel like that's a viable option. It's not something we're willing to accommodate, but we're not done. Not send this signal of we chose this instead. So good luck on finding your parking.
Exactly. I think that's exactly right, Mayor.
We would just have to take that off the table as an option, and I'm not even sure I'm getting vibes that the council's interested in that, but all of a sudden it just feels like this realization that hey, look, we still want to partner to solve this problem because it is a community problem. We're just unwilling to do it with that kind of an impact to the immediate neighborhood. So taking that off, let's brainstorm our other options. Then it's not a one or the other choice. It's a partnership.
I like where the conversation is going, and I agree with that. And I think that the only thing to add to that, of course, just the detail would be continue to work on all these options, look at angled park, whatever. And I always felt that this is, the true solution is very detailed, a little here, a little there. There's not one magic bullet that's going to solve it. But when you do that, working with a school, you can now say, and we tried to build a better mousetrap. We couldn't, if you look at the vast majority, I think not only in Utah, but other around the country, when I was looking at, how have other cities dealt with this problem, most of them do put up signs. The majority, I would say, put up signs to protect the neighborhood.
Prohibiting parking.
And so that would be the other component of this. We'll continue to reach out to the school district and say, we'll continue to work with you on this any way we can. But for the neighborhoods, we're going to put up, 9 to 2 signs on school days, except permits only. So that would, because I don't know that I feel comfortable just doing nothing and waiting, because then we haven't addressed sort of the parking enforcement issue. So that would be continue to work with so the motion would be continue to work with the school district to look at parking solutions so that we're a good neighbor and we're working on those. But we're also going to protect our residential areas, which shouldn't be an extension of the Davis High or Boondocks or any other parking lot. And so I guess I would make that motion to, do 9 to 2 signs by permit only, except on school days, and then also to continue to work with the school and school district to look at other possible solutions.
Except on school days or off school days?
I'm sorry, I probably said that wrong.
Yeah, you
So
did.
to clarify the motion, that the no parking 9 to 2 would be on school days only.
And by
By
permit,
permit,
you're
and
adding,
by
and
permit.
you're adding a
Yeah.
permit in
Yeah.
there.
You know,
Because that way you address the concern. The one thing the 10 to 2 didn't have is you weren't addressing the concern of the neighbors. Well, what if I have business? What if they're emergency services or whatever? How are they going to be able to park? So by adding the permit, you could address that issue.
So let me recognize the motion, unless it's not clear, but let me we have a motion to continue to work with the school district to come up with a viable option that does not include parking in the neighborhoods and install signs that have no parking from 9 to 2 except by permit. Is there a second to that motion?
The only clarification is I think that with that motion, I think there needs to be a timeline if you're going to do that. I mean, there has to be an incentive for the school to be serious about it, as well as the city, to solve this problem. And not only that, for the people out here in the audience, there has to be something. I mean, the status quo isn't going to work.
Right.
So I guess there needs to be a timeline. Say, hey, if this is the direction that we're going to go, and we want to work with you, but when school starts in 2017, the signs are going to be up, and that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think is that reasonable, Andy, to have signs up and to have signs replaced, I guess, by start of school year 2017? So I would add that friendly amendment to the motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Well, if you could do that, I'd second that, if we handle it that way.
So an amended motion, and then by Councilmember Garn and a second by Councilmember Page. Further discussion?
Is there just additional clarification? Is there a chance for that?
Yeah, this is any discussion.
Just for me, and maybe this has already been clarified, but so we're talking that, this is temporary until the school can look at all these other options, and the school has an opportunity to rebound and take all this in, right?
And maybe prove to us that
Yeah,
they're serious about doing what they can do.
Yeah.
The downside to that is if we pursue other options with neighborhood parking as a possibility, if it doesn't work out, it's been pretty clear from the discussion that seems to be either what's desired or what's easiest to move that direction. I think that's kind of why we moved that way. Unless the message is, no, it's not temporary, we're not willing to impact the neighborhoods in that manner. We want to help 100% to come up with a solution, but neighborhood parking can't be an option.
That was the
motion.
motion. Yeah, so it's not temporary, it would be permanent.
That's my understanding.
Permanent paint and permanent, you can park with a permit.
I don't think there's any.
No paint.
Talking paint.
No paint, just the signs.
Just signs.
No paint.
Yeah.
Which,
signs and
right
permits.
now, the signs say,
No parking except the budding
There's several different
property
types of
owners
signs.
and their
Yeah,
guests.
that's not.
There's a couple of different signs.
And how do we do the 91 spots without paint?
we're not talking.
So we're
about doing
not,
that.
so it would basically be parking only for the residents during school hours, or on school days between 9 and 2. So there wouldn't be student parking under this.
No student parking.
In the residential area, yeah.
So,
So, and then we'd work on other solutions like that Chris and Mayor were talking about. Be a good partner with the school, rather than just say, hey, our duty is only parking. Let's work and see if there's some other options that we can help expand parking, but not in the residential zones.
So boiled down, we're just saying no student parking. None.
In the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood, yeah.
neighborhoods.
so I'm sorry, what's the difference between that and what's there now?
That's what I just
Can't
asked.
enforce what's there.
The difference is it would,
How do we enforce this one? I'm not clear.
Well, it's by permit.
so there's a couple of distinctions. One is, you're now putting, I think the current signs are a little inconsistent now, but for the most part, they say no parking except residents on school days.
Visitors or something like that.
And their visitors.
But
But the
police
reason
don't
that's
know if the
unenforceable,
residents are-
Right.
no one has permits anymore, and also there's no clear time there. And so by putting the times on there, that does allow some parking like in the evenings if parents are coming to school events or things like that, but.
So it's like the 10 to 2 almost with the
Yeah,
permit.
it's like, the only difference
added
between the
to
10
it.
to 2 proposal and this is
It's 9
that,
to,
is that you now have permits. You're now
Yes.
giving you're incorporating the one part of this latest proposal to have permits for residents,
Okay.
2 per household.
How many permits can they buy, and or will they be allowed to sell them to students if they choose to?
An enterprising resident might.
Is there gonna be?
Well, that's an option too. I mean, that's up to the residents.
That's where Sheriff McClary comes in. and
That's
goes
where
and-
Deputy McClary.
Well, I don't know if that's such a good idea.
I don't either, I'm
Have
just saying.
No, I
offense.
don't think we go there.
it's not.
Outside, I don't think that's the realm we can go
I think
to.
you got to
But-
keep it simple. But I think that the school needs to understand that we're willing to work with them
Yes.
on some alternative measures to help and, to increase the parking without encroaching on these members' property.
But we're saying
right.
in
I
the
mean, on the
interim, get
citizens.
your students out of here. Let's just be blunt. Like, in the interim, we're saying, get the hell out of here.
No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is there's other options. You need to look at other options.
Well, this option was on the table through the school year of this year, through June of this year, a couple of meetings ago. And then it would be like, hey, school, now it's all on you. You've got to have a solution come up. So, just explanation on my vote. I can't without sharing some of the burden in the middle of a school season, come along with that.
I think-
And give them a deadline of when this current school year is over, this is going to go away. You guys have got to do something.
I think that-
effectively that would
that was
turn out
the-
that way. It would be for the next school year because there need to be some time to replace the signs and issue the permits. And so you'd effectively have, but right now, it's just unenforceable, but there's already no parking signs.
Do they have a place to park then, when we say, get out of here? Like, where are they gonna go?
They're not supposed to be parking
They're
now.
not supposed to be
Yeah, they
parking
don't
there
have it now.
So we'll flush them out to the south side of Main Street, and we'll flush them to,
The real difference probably will be that we can enforce this, and we probably couldn't
And-
enforce what's currently there, but.
But the motion was to do this and make it effective for the new school year.
Yeah,
So
that's
effectively, this would, as I understood it, would be an installation sometime in the summer.
Right.
So when they arrive to school next year, at the same time a new high school opens, and at the same time you've got a new younger generation not yet driving, then yes, that would be the response would be, well, you're not supposed to be parking here anyway, but now we've made it more clear and we have enforcement in place, but that hard enforcement, if you will, wouldn't take place until next school year, as I understood your
Right.
motion.
September 1st, or whatever.
And that may not, we may not have a complete solution, but I think and I think this is kind of what Councilmember Adams was saying, the real drawback to that, the other side is perception, and the perception from the school district very well may be, we kind of said it's either choose here, or the dialogue went to choose the neighbors or choose the school. And it would be very easily perceived that we're saying tonight, well, we chose the neighbors, and that's it. I think it'll take a lot of follow-up and coordination with the city to very clearly not just communicate, but demonstrate that we're willing to do more, to consider options, that's just not a viable option the council's willing to consider.
Well, not to speak for you, Councilmember Snell, but I think you're the representative for Davis High School. I'm the representative for the Davis School District. And so maybe that would be appropriate to reach out to both of them sometime,
We've
either
done
tomorrow
that.
or next week, I guess.
We've done that
So-
hitherto, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You have.
Other than the dialogue was more about removing the signs so people can park in the neighborhood.
Yes, this was
That's
the
right where
specific dialogue.
that's right where we win.
We actually had an in-person meeting with also and this is another thing I thought of, I'm not sure who the representative is here, but I think Mountain High. So Mountain High representatives were there. There was representatives from Davis High and representatives from the school district. And we met, Councilmember Lee was there, and the mayor was there, and I was there. And then, since then, Councilmember Snell has met on 2 different occasions at least, I think, with some of the same school representatives.
High school representatives, yeah.
So we just need to continue that dialogue. I mean, I think that's the answer. People may not be happy with the outcome. At least if we reach out, we give ourselves an opportunity to try and explain our position and say that we're still open to helping
Correct.
in other ways.
Hopefully, yeah, we're not closing the door just simply on this particular option, but we're trying to keep that door wide open for the pursuit of other options that actually could garner even more parking spaces, you know.
And when there is no solution, what do we do then?
That's a good question.
I think we cross that bridge when we come to it, if we come to it.
There's solutions
So
there.
I think there are solutions.
There is.
All right, this has been, unless anyone wants to make a substitute motion to table the item, we do have a motion and a second, and then
I will not make that motion.
I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Adams.
Respectfully, I'm just not there yet. Nay?
I'm not either, nay.
Aye.
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 Thank you. The motion carries 3-2. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around with us, and appreciate all of
Sorry for 'em.
the discussion. The next on our agenda is councilmember reports. Had a road report and a department report, and then another kind of department report.
I'll do a brief report just simply because, Josh was here and he reported on sanitation. There was a request, I can't remember if it was 2 weeks ago or a month ago or some time ago, about glass recycling in the community. And city staff has reached out to, I don't know who the entity is, but an entity that does glass recycling, and we are in the process of working out. It won't be an individual recycle bin as we do with the current recycling that we do at each residence, or those who opt to do it, but it will be a couple of locations, I think one at Barnes Park and the other at Heritage Park,
yeah.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Will be bins where people can take their glass for recycling. And I don't know exactly where, or at what time frame that is. Shane, I don't know if you have that time frame. I think it was in the next couple of months or something,
Yeah.
next month or two.
I think it was April is what,
Yeah.
I don't know why it was
So,
that long, but.
Just a clarification, so they're paying for the bin, right, the company?
The city has no expense whatsoever.
Well, the only expense for the city is we'd have to, that's the bad thing about glass. I mean, if they don't make the bin and it breaks and
Well,
everything, I
that's
mean,
true.
is it the city that's responsible to keep that area clean?
It is.
It is.
It is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's going to be city property.
We'll
That's
monitor it for keeping it clean, safety, and when it's full, we report back to the company that it's full to come get
Okay,
it.
as long as, yeah.
We probably always recant if it became an issue.
Yes, we
Yeah,
could.
yeah,
It's,
yeah, we
there's
should
no
go back up.
commitment.
Josh, you said, or John? John Lovelace? Is that your
No,
saying?
I said Josh presented about sanitation, about the Public Works Department. But because it's going to be on park property.
Yeah, Cole is the one that
Cole
met
was the
with
one
the-
who's
the
kind of
gentleman.
heading that up for glass recycling.
But Dave was right, it was.
John
It was John Lovelace that
That brought it up.
That's right.
He's the one that did the research in it, yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to give a brief update on the Power Commission's meeting?
Yeah.
Great.
No, that's fine. I actually was
I
going
know
to say
you were there,
something.
but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so we had our first Power Commission meeting, and all of the members that have been picked to be on it are going to do a fantastic job. I think it couldn't come at a better time to have this put together. We've given them a lot of homework, and they're all going to be busy. We're going to meet the first Tuesday of every month at 7 as needed, and right now it will be needed for a while, but they're going to put their heads together. They're going to talk through issues, especially the solar usage issues that we're going to be dealing with, and give us recommendations. I suspect that we'll keep them pushed on that, so here in the next few months, I hope they give us some recommendations that we can move forward with, so.
I think the whole state's looking at us.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that Public Service Commission's looking at how they're going to handle it. It's a big deal.
Yeah, but it's a great group, and their knowledge that they're bringing to the table.
Who's got a hidden mic?
That's weird.
That's weird. Okay.
Anyway, their knowledge that they're bringing through to the commission is incredible, and it's really going to be helpful. I think it's exactly what we need.
Cool.
Great.
I just give a quick update.
Yeah, they work.
That was really strange because of many mics. As far as legislative session is more than halfway over. Me and Shane and Councilmember Page and Councilmember Garn have been participating in the League Policy Committee meetings down at the Capitol, and it is amazing to see how quickly things progress. And all of a sudden, something that wasn't even happening, all of it becomes a bill, and it moves quickly, and so it's been a good process. And there are a few bills that could potentially have some concerns with cities, but the League has done a good job in communicating. I think the biggest message has been maintaining local control. I think we're always very sensitive about the state, especially as it relates to zoning issues, telling us what we can. If there was no resistance to that, there would really be no point for a city council if the state told us everything that we could do. And so I think that becomes part of the biggest focus is ensuring that that's kept in check and doesn't get out of line. But it's been great to have Councilmember Garn and Councilmember Page attending those meetings, and I appreciate carpooling with Shane because he has an electric car, so he gets one of those special parking spots. Which, and I had to drive last Monday by myself down there and park 4 miles away, so I was kind of,
Hey, I park close and take my chances.
I haven't been very lucky.
So far, I'm knocking on wood.
Yeah, I haven't been very lucky with that, but anyway, any other council member reports?
I'll just make one additional comment with regard to the Legislative Policy Committee meetings and the legislature's deliberations on local issues and local control. And that is, I don't want to say anything because I think a lot of times politically we want to look at the individuals who are elected and blame them personally. When I saw once in any organization, 95%, some study, I don't know how reliable it is, but 95% of the problems that occur are structural, not people problems. And so when I say this, I don't mean to blame anyone in the legislature. I think we have very fine representatives from our area who do a great job. But having said that, there is a tendency at whatever level of government you're at to want to take more control. So if you look at the legislature, they are always talking about unfunded mandates and push downs from the federal government. And yet when it comes to local issues, guess what? And in fairness to them, there are some issues where it probably makes sense to have a uniform standard statewide, and cities probably don't object to those. For example, body camera or something that really needs to maybe be more uniform. But when the legislature starts dipping down into, local zoning and things that really need to be made, every city's a little different, every town's a little different. They really need to be made at the local level with local input, local hearings. And so hopefully, and I think the ULCT membership and also Mayor Hyatt serving as its president and, a lot of the local leaders contacting their representatives, we do hit on that message over and over again, and it is really important that always be heard.
Well, it's not only that, Jake, but what happens is, like, for example, our city is involved. Like Mike Blackham went down to a hearing and expressed his opinion about a plan that's going through that the Wasatch Home Builders Association is sponsoring. And it basically says that our city has 3 to 5 days to approve a plan, and if they don't, it automatically becomes approved. And I mean, that's just completely taking control away, and I mean, I think we do a pretty good job on that. So it's interesting, and I think that it really does matter if we express our voices and our concerns. It has an effect on them, and they do think about it and change. But every year, it seems like they have some weird ones come out, and you have to kind of fight, every single year, you have to kind of fight for common sense, and government doesn't have a lot of common sense.
Yeah, I have a friend
That
that's-
includes us probably too, right?
Yeah.
Especially parking around Davis.
Yeah. Oh, better watch out, there might be a legislative action for that too, so. There might be.
The state senate will take that up.
All right, next on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have one set of minutes dated February 2nd, 2017. Welcome a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I got a motion by Councilmember Lee and a second by Councilmember Snell for approval of the minutes. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have review of calendar. You have before you a 3-month calendar. We mentioned before, oh, that's over, never mind. We have, there was one calendar item that I wanted to address. It sounds like on our regular schedule, we have a city council meeting scheduled on February 6th, which conflicts with the League of Cities and Towns Conference. It sounds like, yes, I'm sorry, February, April 6th, and it sounds like there are a few of us that are attending the conference, and it sounds like there are a few of you that are out of town. It's also spring break. Regardless, it does not appear that we'll have a quorum for that meeting. An option that we could consider in the month of March, there are 5 Thursdays, so we could meet on the 2nd, the 16th, and the 30th, and then forego our 6th meeting, or we could just forego our 6th meeting altogether. But as we look at timing of, the Planning Commission meets on the 23rd, so it's likely we would have business for the 30th, and waiting until the 20th of April, when the Planning Commission meets on the 23rd of March, may be a bit long, so.
You know, I'm okay either way, but maybe the guy we need to ask is Shane, what's the schedule? I mean, do we have a lot of stuff that we need to be looking at, or?
It's hard to say that far out. I don't have anything really pressing at this point, but maybe we could make that determination a little closer.
Yeah, just let it ride for a minute if there is something pressing. You know.
Maybe in a month from now or something.
Do you know of anything coming before the Planning Commission that would?
Well, again, I can't project to the end of the month, but where there's 5 Thursdays, the mayor's proposal is very simple. If you just want to get out of the meeting, I'm not opposed to that by any means.
Well, we can make that determination on the 16th, but we probably need to make it make it public knowledge now that we won't be meeting on the 6th, and we can tentatively, if needed, meet on March 30th. If it turns out, we find out on the 16th, hey, we've got something on the Planning Commission agenda, and if you don't meet, they're going to have to wait more than a month, and we can determine it at the time.
Tentative 30th,
We
nothing
need-
on the 6th.
And so do we need a motion to cancel that city council meeting? We can do it at the next meeting if so, but it's just, it's a little ways down. I wanted to.
We'll put an agenda item to, I think you have to, by agenda item, modify your schedule. If
I think
you're
our
canceling
schedule's
or
just once a
moving
month,
meeting.
though. It only requires once a month, I was thinking, but just so you know, we'll be canceling it, and if you tell us that we need to take official action, then we will. Welcome a motion to
I
adjourn.
move to adjourn, Mayor.
Second that.
Need a motion and second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
You win by 3 minutes.
What's up, man? I have trouble with this every time.
And up here, it's the wedding.
That's what I heard.
Big box.
We have that.
Maria, what's the music and the wedding?
The wedding on the calendar.
It says
The
2
wedding?
p.m. the music, 7:30 p.m. the music. 2 p.m. the music, 7:30 p.m. the music on Saturdays.
I have no idea what it is.
Then we have the wedding.
This is how I use the restroom.
I was going to say, do we
6
have a
hours.
wedding? We don't have that.
On the 29th of April, we have vegetable.